Madam Secretary, please start the meeting.
Chair, meeting is now being recorded.
Thank you. I would like to call the regular meeting of August 28th, 2023 to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Will the Secretary please call roll?
Commissioner Benninger,
Present.
Commissioner Escamilla, Commissioner Leo,
Here.
Commissioner Ramos,
Present.
Commissioner Wu,
Here.
Vice Chair Oliva. Here. Chair Pham.
Here.
Chair quorum has been reached at 5:33 p.m.
Thank you. Before we begin, I would like to remind my fellow commissioners to turn your microphone on when speaking and off when not speaking. And when speaking, please place the microphone about 4 inches away from you. Members of the public may attend the Planning Commission meeting in person or virtually via Zoom. I now invite the Commission Secretary to describe the way the public can access and participate in the meetings.
This meeting is being live streamed via our portal www.santa-ana.com/public/portal and to YouTube at www.youtube.com/City of Santa Ana videos. If you would like to provide public comment, you may do so in the following ways. 1, join the meeting via Zoom, enter meeting ID 879-226-90776. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, select the hand icon to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the name you entered. 2, you can also join the meeting by calling 669-900-6833, enter meeting ID 879-226-90776. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, press *9 to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the last 3 digits of your phone number. After you are called upon, you may press *6 to unmute yourself. For those who are attending this meeting in person and would like to provide public comment, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. All speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. I will alert you when your time is up.
Moving on to public comments on non-agenda or non-public hearing item. Madam Secretary, does anyone wish to speak on any non-public hearing items?
If you're attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on non-agenda or non-public hearing items, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you're participating via Zoom and would like to comment on non-agenda or non-public hearing items, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you're calling in and would like to comment on non-agenda or non-public hearing items, please dial *9 and then *6 to unmute yourself. I will wait a few seconds. Chair, we have 1 speaker on Zoom.
Please go ahead, speaker.
Yes, this is Dale Helvig. I just wanted to say that the project that you're looking at under the business calendar, I hope you do not approve the density bonus agreement. 4th Street is pretty
Caller,
crowded
this is
as
for
it is.
non-agenda item. You can call back when the item is being discussed.
Okay.
Thank you.
We do not have any further speakers.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve item A, minutes from July 24th, and item B, excused absences, and item C, resolution affirming denial of modifications to conditional use permit number 2019-41 and CUP number 2023-03.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ramos and a second by Commissioner Wu. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Benninger,
Aye.
Commissioner Escamilla, Commissioner Leo,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Oliva,
Aye.
Chair Pham.
Aye.
Motion approved by majority vote with Commissioner Escamilla absent.
That concludes the consent calendar. I'll now review the process for the public hearing so everyone knows what to expect. Staff will first provide a presentation and answer questions from the commission. The public hearing will then be open. Applicants will then be given the opportunity to speak limited to 15 minutes. Members of the public will then be given the opportunity to comment limited to 3 minutes. Applicants will then be given the opportunity to respond to comments made by the public limited to 5 minutes. The public hearing will then be closed. Discussion will return to the commission with formal action to be taken to be approved, deny, or continue review of the application. Please consider the following suggestions when organizing your comments. Please state your name and address, which is voluntary. State whether you support, oppose, or are neutral to the proposal. Your statement should include all pertinent facts within your knowledge. Please note, decisions on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 days by any interested individual or party. Recommendations on this item will be forwarded to the City Council at a later date for final determination. This is the time and place for the public hearing on item number 1, density bonus agreement number 2023-01 for the property located at 1212 East 4th Street. Before we begin, do any of the commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regard to this item? Seeing none, Pedro will now provide a brief presentation.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. Just for the record, it should be noted that Commissioner Escamilla arrived at 5:38 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The first item on tonight's agenda is a request for approval of a density bonus agreement to allow the construction of a 15-unit multifamily rental community with 1 unit proposed as affordable to very low income households for the property address as 1212 East 4th Street. The applicant is requesting concessions and waivers from the city's development standards through the density bonus agreement pursuant to the California Government Code. The project site is located west of East 4th Street and North Grand Avenue intersection. It's approximately 0.287 acres in size, and it's currently vacant and unimproved. The site has a general plan designation of urban neighborhood medium, or UN 40, and the zoning is transit zoning code with a corridor designation. The site is surrounded by commercial to the north and west and single-family residential to the south, and by a vacant site to the east. The project includes the construction of a new 4-story residential building consisting of the 15-unit apartment, 591 square feet of open space, 17 parking spaces, and on-site bicycle storage. The development will include 6 studio units, 5 one-bedroom plus office units, 1 one-bedroom unit, and 3 two-bedroom units. Each of the units will contain full kitchens, bedrooms, bathrooms, and open common living areas, and 9 of them will include private decks. The project features a contemporary architectural style similar to many multifamily or mixed-use residential communities under construction in the city. And the project would incorporate a series of art murals along the east and west elevations. This next slide shows the existing site now, and you can see that it's vacant and unimproved. And on this slide, we have the proposed site plan. Vehicle access onto the project site is being proposed along 4th Street, which introduces an enhanced entry area with pavers. Pedestrian access is also provided along 4th Street through a provided lobby area. A secondary pedestrian access is proposed along the west elevation, and 3 units are proposed along the 1st floor, while 4 units are proposed to the floors 2 through 4. And here we have the proposed conceptual landscape plan. It shows the landscaping palette for the site, which can include a range of high-quality trees, bushes, shrubs, or ground cover. And you can see that the parking area is proposed to include 24-inch box trees along the western property line, low-level shrubs and ground cover around the building and towards the rear of the site. This next slide shows the proposed unit floor plans. Again, the development will include 6 studio units, 5 one-bedroom plus office units, 1 one-bedroom unit, and 3 two-bedroom units. The studio units are proposed to range in size from 596 square feet to 667 square feet. The one-bedroom plus office will be approximately 734 feet. The one-bedroom unit will be 773 square feet. And the two-bedroom units will be approximately 894 square feet in size. Each of the units will contain the kitchens, as mentioned, bathrooms, and open spaces. On these following slides, we have the proposed elevations. On this first one, we have the north and west elevation. As previously mentioned, the project does propose a contemporary design. The overall design, massing, features, and materials of the new construction will be compatible but differentiated from the existing neighborhood. The contemporary architectural style would include the cement board shiplap siding, brick veneer, stucco finishes, vinyl frame windows, metal railings for the proposed decks, metal awnings, and high quality architectural detailing. Here we have the south and east elevation. And as previously mentioned, the project would also incorporate a series of murals as can be seen on the east elevation. Overall, the project would include a design and solid construction materials that would ensure that the project ages well for the duration of the building's lifetime. Of the total units in the development, 1 unit is proposed to be affordable to households earning less than 50% of the area median income, or AMI, which is currently set at $71,750, adjusted for a 4-person household. And this is as published by the California Department of Housing and Community Development as of this year. The density bonus agreement will be in place for a 55-year term, where the unit is to be rented for occupancy or held vacant and available for immediate occupancy to very low income tenants. And then the purpose of the state density bonus law is to encourage the development and availability of affordable housing by requiring the inclusion of affordable housing units within new developments. And then pursuant to the California Government Code, a local jurisdiction is limited in its ability to deny concession and waivers and is preempted from denying the density bonus agreement. Pursuant to section 41-1607 of the Santa Ana Municipal Code, an application for a density bonus agreement is required to be approved by the Planning Commission for any project containing concessions or waivers. The Planning Commission's review of the density bonus agreement is based on the 3 findings outlined in the Municipal Code, and the project does not require a site plan review per the Municipal Code. The Planning Commission's review and determination for the request is limited to the provisions of the density bonus agreement application only. The site is parked in compliance with the state density bonus law and provides 17 surface parking spaces, or a ratio of 1.1 spaces per unit. The project would have an 8% affordability rate, with 1 unit proposed as affordable. And as such, the applicant is entitled to a 27.5% density bonus. Due to the project's 8% affordability rate, the developer can also seek 1 density bonus concession and unlimited waivers that enable productions of units on site. Here we have a table that provides a clear breakdown of the base units permitted by the zoning and the density allowed per the affordability proposed. So pursuant to the Transit Zoning Code corridor zoning designation, the number of units that would be allowed by right would be 12 units. That's considered the base density. By providing 8% affordability, the developer is allowed a 27.5% density bonus, which affords them 4 additional units. However, the applicant and developer is only proposing 15 units, even though they're allowed to propose 16. This next slide provides the concessions and waivers that are requested by the applicant. As proposed, the project requires 1 concession and 4 waivers. The concession required is to remove the requirement for ground floor commercial. As outlined in our zoning code, multifamily dwellings permitted in the corridor district are only permitted with retail or service ground floor on the ground floor or on the second and upper floors. The first waiver required to allow the building The first waiver is required to allow the building to exceed the maximum building height of 3 stories. As proposed, the maximum height of the new structure would be 4 stories in height. The second waiver required is to allow the building to exceed the allowable massing ratio. Right now, the second through fourth floor exceeds the allowable ratio. A couple years ago, the transit zoning code was modified to reduce what's called the a cake effect. And so it was modified to have a more appropriate massing ratio, and this project exceeds that. The third waiver is required to reduce the common and private open space requirements. The project provides 433 square feet of common interior space provided in the form of a lobby space, and that's about 3.5% of the lot. And the project also provides 591 square feet of private open space in the form of private decks for the 9 units. The fourth and last waiver is requested to reduce the landscape buffer and planter requirements. The project provides a landscape buffer of 2 feet along the western property lines, 3 feet less than what's typically required. And then the applicant is providing a partial and diamond-shaped tree planters in the surface parking lot to compensate for the reduction. When analyzed, the requested concessions and waivers could be avoided if the project were designed on a different site or using a different site plan. If the project were designed with a multi-level parking structure or subterranean parking structure, or if the applicant used different building materials to construct a taller project, additional area on the site would become available to provide the ground floor commercial, the minimum open space required, and the required building size and massing. However, these changes would increase development costs, resulting in the housing project becoming financially infeasible, and would significantly increase the financial implications of alternative construction types, ultimately resulting in a project that wouldn't be feasible or wouldn't be able to provide affordable units. In conclusion of the analysis, staff found that the project satisfies the purpose of the state density bonus law and the transit zoning code and assists in accomplishing the goals of providing affordable housing opportunities. The project provides an opportunity for additional housing and development on a site that would otherwise continue to remain vacant and underutilized. It provides for an economically balanced community by providing housing for different demographic and income levels. And lastly, the project is designed to be compatible with the scale of other residences in the area, will be consistent with several goals and policies of the general plan. Pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, an environmental impact report was prepared and certified in 2010 for the transit zoning code document. A mitigation and monitoring program was adopted, and it included findings of fact and a statement of overriding considerations. This development is not anticipated to have any additional environmental impacts that were not already addressed as part of the 2010 environmental impact report. And based on the analysis, a notice of exemption will be filed for the project. However, the project will be subject to all of the mitigation measures outlined in the environmental impact report. Lastly, there is no physical impacts associated with this project. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving density bonus agreement application number 2023-01 as conditioned. I am available for questions at this time, and I do want to note that the applicants are here, both actually applicants plural, to answer any questions about the project.
Thank you, Pedro. The public hearing is now open. I'll start down the line. You have any questions for Pedro, and then we'll ask applicant to come up. Commissioner Benninger.
A question on the parking. 1.1 seems rather low. It seems like we have more vehicles in that area. Does this meet all the state requirements for 1.1 parking?
Thank you, Commissioner. I think I might have missed the last question. Did you say, does it meet our requirements or state requirements?
I believe state requirements say C's arts, correct?
It meets state requirements when an applicant is proposing a development density bonus agreement, yes.
Commissioner Escamilla.
Just a quick question on one of the public letters that we received from the DOT. So I guess if staff could just respond to the context of that letter, I think it's requiring some kind of commercial presence on that first floor in order to still be under the corridor zone. So if we can just kind of walk through that, I haven't had enough time to really digest the contents of that letter.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner, for that. The staff did receive a letter from, I think at this point, it's still unclear if it's directly from DOT or an individual representing himself, but the gist of the comment letter was suggesting that the staff's determination that a density bonus agreement concession could be used to waive the requirement for ground floor commercial was incorrect. However, I do want to point out to the commission that staff was working with the developer and we received a technical assistance letter from HCD specifically stating that the concession could be used to either eliminate, waive, or reduce the requirement for ground floor commercial. So in our proposal, we are consistent with the state density bonus law.
Perfect. Now, thank you for that explanation. Does tie those two comments. And then I guess I just had another observation a little bit to Carl. Carl's point, I don't think we can really require any additional parking. I totally understand that, but just to the applicant, if there is any way to preemptively design this in order to have stacked parking that could potentially be installed in the future, just as a consideration, if that's okay with the applicant, just it's a little bit easier to build all that infrastructure currently rather than down the road. But I do believe that we still have something in our zoning code that would make that a little bit more difficult, and that we can't unbundle parking with a particular in a particular multifamily development. So I'm not sure if we need to take a look at that in order to enable more kind of a demand responsive parking in these multifamily types of situations. So just something to take a look at, because I do think that that might be an impediment down the road to add additional parking if that's something that's economically reasonable.
Thank you, Commissioner. Noted.
Commissioner Leo.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. So the trade-off here is we're gonna get one affordable unit. We're gonna allow a denser piece of property. We're gonna have less parking. We're gonna have less open space. We're gonna have no commercial for one extra ultra affordable unit. That's pretty much the trade-off that you're asking us to vote for with a 4-story building that's out of place with the rest of the corridor. I'm struggling with that, just so you know. I'm really struggling with 4 stories with, when you pointed out on the map that there were single-story families, homes behind it. There's commercial to the right of it, which is not 4 stories, maybe 1.5 stories, maybe 2 stories max. So that's what I'm struggling with. And I'm trying to figure out why we went down this road. Understanding that it met the requirements, but shoehorning a 4-story building into a piece of property that the rest of it's like 2-3 stories max on that piece of property. So my questions are more of, how did we get from looking at the corridor, which is 2 stories, even the commercial buildings are maybe 2 stories max, to a 4-story dense piece of property with only 1 affordable unit instead of 3 or 4? I mean, if the goal is to give the density bonus so that we can have affordable units, then so be it. But I'm really struggling with like how we're shoehorning this project in a family neighborhood / commercial neighborhood that's got average heights of about 2 stories, not 4.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that comment. I think it's not easy being the first person to propose a project. As you can tell, there's a lot of vacant properties on Grand as well. What our staff did in reviewing this project was determine that it was, 1, compatible with our zoning and compatible with our general plan. So both of these documents outline the density permitted as part of Grand Avenue and as part of 4th Street. So although it may seem like it's out of place now, it's, there's no developments along Grand. The Grand zoning designation and general plan also call for this similar type of development, right? So the developer is just the first one to submit an application. So in our review, we did ensure that it is consistent with not only existing developments, but what the zoning and general plan call for, and for future development along this Grand corridor. As in regards to the height and in regards to the additional units permitted, we do have limitations in terms of what we can deny and respond to when it comes to state density bonus laws, right? If an applicant is proposing a project that meets the affordability, which is why the state put the law in place to begin with, to incentivize more affordable units and just units in general, It is difficult for us to say that it does not meet those standards because in reality it does. So this project meets all of our zoning and general plan, and by virtue of that, they're entitled to the additional density and entitled to the concessions that are being requested today. And as outlined in the report, had the project been designed differently or in a different site, there'd probably be a better chance for the developer to meet those requirements, open space requirements, ground floor commercial, but that's just not the case. The site is limited, it's limited in size. And in an effort to provide housing units and affordable housing units, this is the application type that the developer chose to go with.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wu? Any comments for Pedro?
I kind of going down your road, Commissioner Leo. The key word in your presentation, and I'm not blaming you, but it was concession. Concession to the state that is mandated that for these reasons, it's on a vacant lot, isn't we need to approve this. But the concession made was on the purpose of one low income for very low income household, right? So they say, I will do one but you have 5 studio apartments with about 500 square feet or so, right? And then you have 5 one-bedroom units, right? And then 1 2-bedroom and so forth. Which one is a low-income unit?
Thank you, Commissioner. It'd be the 1-bedroom unit.
Okay, so what is our housing need? Is it, I guess there's a variety of housing need. Those that are for what we typically used to call single room occupancy. You have a lot of working people who don't have families. We also have families in the low income bracket. So I guess while it meets the intention of giving a concession where we don't have trees and we have an open space problem, and that we don't demand more parking. And as Commissioner Leo has pointed out in the past, we're also providing housing, but we're not providing opportunity for economic growth. And so our concession is not to ask for businesses in the ground floor, right? Is there in the lobby side, can it be used for community use?
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't know that the space is big enough for community use, the lobby. I mean, it's intended for the residents, really. It's big enough for, your typical congregation as maybe someone's waiting for the mail or as you're waiting for the elevator. But to hold a community function or type of event, that the space just wouldn't be feasible for that.
So basically any comments coming from the community about this unit, which may be important to them, doesn't meet the criteria for denial because the state said we still have to go forward.
I'm not sure I understand the question, Commissioner, but just as a kind of a matter of clarification in the staff report, the state density bonus law has been amended, several times. The most recent time, it limits local jurisdictions from requiring any sort of studies to justify the incentives or concessions being requested. And even when there's a concession proposed, it has to result in what's quoted as an identifiable and actual cost reduction to the project for affordable housing. So what's happened now is it's a trade-off, right? The developer is saying, I will provide the affordable housing, but to do so, I can't do it on my small lot. So I need a reduction in open space, or I need to reduce the ground floor commercial so I can make this project viable. That's this identifiable cost reduction that's talked about in the state density bonus. And because we are limited in requesting documents to justify this, in a sense, as you mentioned, we're required to move forward with the project.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ramos?
Yes, thank you. I also have some concerns over the level of affordability and then the rent levels for that one unit. But I think some of those questions may be best directed at the applicant. But for staff, I do have a question. So I read through the technical assistance letter that HCD provided to the city. And there's a section on Santa Ana's Affordable Housing Opportunity and Creation Ordinance, AHOCO, formerly the WHO. And basically the state is saying that what applies to this project is the state density bonus law and not our local inclusionary housing ordinance. So my question to staff is, if this project was subject to our inclusionary housing ordinance, how many affordable housing units would have been required on site?
It depends on the income level, but essentially at the affordability type that's being proposed now for very low, two would have
Two.
been required.
Okay, and then this project can include 16 units, but is currently including 15, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And does staff know why the developer chose to go with the very low AMI level as opposed to extremely low or acutely low?
I don't know specifically, that might be a better question for the applicant, but as outlined in the technical assistance letter, this process has been a long process with staff. But I believe that might be just a better question for the applicant.
Thank you. And then this one might also be for the applicant, but is staff aware or did staff influence the applicant choosing to make that one affordable unit a one-bedroom unit?
As I understand, there's some sort of formula and it's based on the most number of unit types. So because there's a few more one bedroom plus office types, the end result would have been the one bedroom. That's the one that has the most number of units for the proposed project development. And to make it kind of fair, that's what was generated as one bedroom. So there, as you can see on the breakdown of the units, there's much less two bedrooms and much less studios than the one bedroom. So that's just kind of how it ended up being calculated. Plus there's only 15 units, so that's not that many. On a larger development, of course, it would have triggered an identification of maybe more spread out units. Since there's only 15 here and the one bedroom is the one that has the most, that's the one that was identified.
Thank you. So I understand there's a difference between like triggers and requirements and then also like developer willingness to go beyond that. So if the developer was willing, could they provide more affordable housing units or a different unit type for that affordable unit or any future units they might provide in the development? That's a could they question if they wanted to.
You're right. I think that might be a better question for our developer. But as far as how this process works to identify the appropriate unit type to be the affordable unit, we do work with our housing staff that is versed in how these units are supposed to be spread out throughout the project sites. And this is just the unit that was identified as the one that would be required to be the restricted unit or affordable. To your question about whether you'd be amenable to providing more affordable units or other types of unit types for the affordable, that's a question for him.
Great. So if that was something they were interested, there's nothing to prohibit them from doing that, correct? Like legally speaking.
I can't answer the unit types because there's a density bonus agreement that's been worked out and kind of agreed to. That would require to be amended because there's specific term language in there that restricts the restricted unit to the one bedroom unit type. So I don't know specifically about that, but I don't know that there's anything restricting that developer from proposing more affordable units if you wanted to.
Okay, what about the affordability level on any affordable units provided?
Same, there's nothing that restricts them to any specific type. Again, it just depends on a developer, in general, a developer wanting to propose a specific affordability type to either get the certain number of concessions or a certain number of density bonus increase. And then had our inclusionary housing requirements been been triggered as part of this, they would have had its own set of affordability requirements as well.
And then just to follow up on that, so had our inclusionary housing ordinance been triggered, what affordability levels would the two affordable units have been required to be?
So there's a minimum 15% of the units that would have been required to be low income, or a minimum of 10% required very low income, or a minimum of 5% to be extremely low income. So our inclusionary housing requirements before the AHOCO provided those breakdowns, and it just depended on the type of affordability. So at the very low, as being proposed, it would have required 10% or 2 of the units. Had it been something else, low income or extremely low, that number would have changed.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair.
My question is more of a technicality, I guess. Since this is a density bonus agreement, would there be able to, is there room to submit an amendment for the unit types? Or is it locked into the unit types that are being proposed in this resolution?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is your question more about whether we could amend the development agreement, or whether the developer can come back and say, I want to change these unit types for a 2-bedroom?
I believe both.
Okay. It would require us to go back and continue working with the developer in either of those situations. Again, the development density bonus agreement, excuse me, has been kind of worked out and agreed to, at least preliminarily leading up to this meeting. And the project has been since 2000, a couple years. And so it's been a while that staff's been working with that developer. So at this point, I can't say whether he'd be amenable to coming back and amending the unit types to be something else. That would probably be a question for them.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Pedro, just a quick question on, I know your analysis showed that according to our zoning, that 12 units would fit on site. Is that a 12 unit just based on the unit per acre analysis, or is it 12 units based on the developer meeting all the required parking that would need for 12 units and open space, et cetera, et cetera?
Thank you, Chair. The 12 units is based on the most intense type of building type in this corridor district. And that assumes just the maximum number of dwelling units you can have based on the size of the lot. When you start carving out parking open space to meet our requirements, that number probably would not be 12 units. It's just when we do the calculations for a state density bonus, it's just based on the base number of units, regardless of the parking and the open space. It takes into account the base times whatever, plus whatever the density increases by the affordability type that's being proposed.
So then in reality, that there is a larger gap between the amount of units that could have conformed to our local zoning code versus what the state allowed with the concessions.
There could be. I don't have a site plan
Right.
that identifies a 12-unit development with the required parking and open space. But there could be a situation where the 12 units that are allowed based on the lot size they're not developed to 12 units because of those requirements for other development standards.
And given that I think parking is a popular item that everyone has mentioned. Given that we're conceding on the parking ratio, the project is relatively close to public transit. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Within half a mile?
Yes, half mile, at least a bus stop.
Great. That's it for me. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Good evening. My name is Oscar Randa. I'm one of several owners and applicants of the project. My day job is a consultant. I help with the property, land use construction. I'm also on the housing council in July. I'm also legislative affairs committee for EIA. I just recently joined the housing committee for Homemade Orange County, and personally doing the best I can to No, espérate. No.
Go ahead.
Well, we understand that the design is still a discussion. We're happy to share with you if you have any questions. Yeah, we bought this property back in 2019 and it was right about the time that the transit zoning code was being amended. Want me to talk into that? Mind if I hold it up? Because there we go. Yeah, so it was about 4 years ago. At the time, early discussions were really about purchasing the city property, which was immediately next door. We spent a lot of time talking economic development. We were really hopeful that we could acquire that corner because it's really small and very restricted access. And I think that'll continue to haunt me forever that we weren't able to pull that off. It got sucked into Surplus Lands Act stuff and Public Works stuff, and it never became available to us. And I think that's unfortunate. We submitted our first, we kind of gave up on that. We just felt like we exhausted the conversation. We submitted our first formal application in November of 2021. I think if you look back at that application, it looked very different. I think we were at like 12 units at the time. And, you know, we always wanted to kind of stay in our lane and stay out of the realm of discretion. We wanted a project that was by right. And I appreciate the comments about struggle because it's been a struggle. It's been a very difficult road. And I want to thank staff for working with us on some pretty tricky topics. You know, we covered SB 330, density bonus, Housing Accountability Act, you know, some pretty sticky issues. And I think we got through it. Yes, the density bonus law gives us a lot of leeway. Now we could have come to you with an 18-unit, 5-story monstrosity with no parking. We didn't want to do that. The good development is all about balance. We have to balance community goals with our own goals, with long-term goals, short-term goals, affordable market rate. You know, it is a balancing act in a very dynamic marketplace. Costs are still through the roof. Inflation is still rampant. There's a limit to how much you can charge for a market rate, you know, apartment. And I can go back to original performers and laugh at how wrong they were. Speed to market is really important, and this has been very slow. We also struggled with trash. And so I want to get you to visualize for a second a project that has ground floor commercial, fully parked, all the open space, and about 1/3 to 2/3 of the property eaten up by a trash turnaround. We were ghosted by Waste Management, and then we were told it was Republic. Okay. And then they finally came out and said, we can't use the Scout truck. These big trucks are not compatible with small infill sites. It would have been a very different project if you let us use the Scout truck. Maybe it would still have been 3 stories. Maybe we could have got more parking. Maybe we could have got more open space. We exhausted that conversation. We eventually conceded and provided the massive turnaround. Okay. I'm going to try to address some of the comments. You know, yeah, again, parking. We also really wanted a gate for the parking. We wanted a very secure, safe development. And the standard is you need to put it 60 feet back. Well, the property is only 125 feet deep. It would have negated the whole benefit. And then building and safety told us it would have considered the 2 parking lots as 2 different areas, so more accessible parking. It would have kicked our butts. We conceded on the gate. The ground floor commercial was dead. It was always dead. There's no way you can lease 600 square feet. It was the tail wagging the dog. I'm glad that the state fixed that issue for us because it was just a problem. By the way, there's ADU laws too that allow developers to convert dead retail to units. That would have been our backup plan. Would love the idea of stacked parking. The only place we could really do that is on the rear setback. And I don't know if we would need another concession or what that would look like in the future, but that is absolutely something that we talked to staff about a little bit. And we do have 3 2-bedroom units that I think are great candidates for tandem stackers. I like the idea of including the infrastructure up front to allow us the flexibility in the future. So the switch gear, the transformer, all the electrical sizing can take that into consideration. I think that's smart. We also have a number of EV chargers per the new code. Yeah, it's a difficult market. I hope I addressed your questions and appreciate all the hard work that not only us, but staff put into this. It's been a slog, and I want to build it, and it's a small but very meaningful project to us. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Benninger.
Interesting listening to my other commissioners, getting a feel for what we're being asked to give up for the concession. Is there, and I don't have a problem with the commercial, I understand that. I would hate to see something this small of a commercial, but could there's a possibility a second low-income unit? Have you guys considered that?
Yeah, it's a privately funded project, and then when it's a privately funded project, the nature of the very low income units is that it's not public financing. The market rate units subsidize it. And the value of that very low income unit and the stabilized value is not a discount, it's a loss. So now you need a market rate unit to make up that loss. So you're already down to, and that's the nature of costs and revenues and how we value stabilized assets. They are not easy to make work. And these small projects, it looks like 27.5%, looks like big bonuses and big inclusionary ordinances. These small projects are especially sensitive when it comes to costs and revenues. They're very difficult to make work. Cannot compete with the larger developments that have big amenity packages. We set out thinking we were going to do a kind of a naturally occurring affordable project, an attainable project that wasn't deed restricted. And we were just going to provide kind of bread and butter housing. The nature of the process, lures you into providing nicer siding and bigger windows and fancier stuff. And you slowly lose sight of that original intention. I hope that those choices don't bite us in the butt in the future. Again, we're balancing, a lot of times we're balancing sentiment with just hard math and feasibility.
With the AMI at 71,000 roughly, what would you expect per month for this low housing unit to rent for?
Staff might have the answer to that. We actually got a schedule from the housing division that showed what we can charge, including the utilities allowance. I want to say it's, I forget.
Commissioner, I don't have that information at this time. We'll look at that.
Okay.
I can pull it up on my phone if you give me more time.
Yes, I'd like to know what that is. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Escamilla.
No, I definitely understand the importance of adding additional units of housing. I think the housing crisis is real. And the younger that you are in this particular part of the country, the less likely you are to be able to live here over the long term because we haven't built. I think it's a reality. So I guess the only modification I'd like ask as to kind of how it didn't come about was there potential discussion for a live work unit on that ground floor just to allow that flexibility? Because it's kind of this quasi, like even when I'm looking at it, like I would rent it out and just like be, having coffee like in my front lawn or something, right? So like, was that a discussion or just?
Absolutely. And Eric is a big proponent. This project was conceived through COVID when live work and for telecommuting were big themes in our world. I do want to note that the one very low income unit is larger at 734 square feet and it has an office. So some of our units do have that in the unit. It's not a co-working space. Yeah, I'm a believer in that. I worked from home for 3 years. I worked out of my living room. I think it was a reality we all faced.
Yeah, just at least for me, I guess I would prefer to allow you the flexibility of having that use kind of on that first floor. So if anyone did rent it out and wanted to have a work from home business, that they could do so. But that's probably outside of the scope of the density bonus, which I believe is what federal will tell me right now. Yeah, okay.
I think there's a different category in the transit zoning code for live work. If I'm not mistaken, I think we're flex block, or I didn't want to get sucked into a whole different category.
Yeah, totally understand after all that. And I guess secondary question, and this is kind of more to just what you already have as an amenity on site. Will the mural remain? Because it looks like the brick wall's not staying, so that one will stay up.
Yeah, we're really proud of that mural. It was It was provided by Kimberly Duran, a local artist who is a really kind person. We met on Facebook because I commented on some of her other work, and she took a very small fee as just a gesture to the community. She's really a great person. It's named Inner Self, and we will do everything in our power to preserve it in place.
Thank you.
Commissioner Leo.
First of all, I appreciate your struggle. It sounds like, when the city put in place the plans along the corridor, it came with some problems that you discovered along the way. So hopefully you can submit those so we can fix those. Because if we want development on there and you're struggling to do this, imagine what the rest of the people are going to try to do as the light rail comes through the city. Second of all, I'm still struggling, as you were. I'm trying to understand about compatibility. You're the first one out of the chute in the corridor. So if we grant this, then who comes next behind you that may not be as considerate as you are? That's what concerns me most. Because there are good developers and there's bad developers. People try to take advantage of the system and people work in the system. You're clearly working within the system and trying to make the best on this lot, considering what as a city, we're going through. And so a list of the problems that you got or you ran into when you were describing to me that was it building and safety said you would have 2 lots?
Yeah, they would, if we added a gate, they would classify the front lot as different than the back lot, and suddenly your accessibility.
If we're trying to encourage development, right? Who in their right mind does
Yeah.
that?
You know-
Makes that decision, especially if we're trying to make it an urban living environment.
I appreciate that.
We just need the list from you, because if you're the first one out of the chute, the next person's gonna come and say, oh, I want to put in a gate, and then say, oh, no, that's 2 lots. But we need to fix that if we're gonna encourage this development. I understand capital is expensive right now. It's very expensive.
Mhm.
I'm just still struggling, but I appreciate you sticking with it, because we're not known to be easy place to do business. So, but I appreciate it. But I was wondering to you, like, what the list of problems you ran into going through the process. Forget COVID, but like the regular developer issues, because I've been to enough ULI conferences and I've spoken at them. I get it.
I'm happy to send an email.
That would be great. That would be really good.
High level though, I mean, the
No,
transit zoning code.
High level, because if we're trying to encourage development on this corridor
Yeah.
and you're running into problems with this, imagine the next one that comes behind you. Same problems. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll send you something.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wu.
I don't see the struggle. You know, we knew this trolley was coming by that goes nowhere for the last 10 years. And we're hoping to encourage the type of development. So yes, we're looking for a good example. And you try to meet it. I would like to see one more additional very low income unit. But it may not happen, right? What I don't like about this is that in making the concession, are we setting an example that we are willing to give up all these things so that we can have development there? And then, like Commissioner Leo say, I don't know what the impact is on the next person, but we have to deal with that later. So I thank you for coming and thank you for sharing your struggle on that. We're left with a choice. Either we approve it or we don't approve it. We're sent back to staff to rework the agreement. If we rework the agreement, is that a delay that's a not deal breaker?
I believe, my understanding is that, this is hard to say, but my understanding is that density bonus law on a by right project is not something you can deny. You'd have to make very specific findings, which would be a taking. At the end of the day, I have property rights, and I've always made the distinction between being a defendant of my rights versus an applicant towards discretion. I don't know you guys. I don't know what your discretion or your judgment is. So I wanted to stay out of that lane, and I think I've done that. So I don't think you can deny it. Respectfully, sir.
Commissioner Ramos asked some pertinent questions that I'm looking to see how you would address that.
I believe believe the very extremely low income unit is what you're asking about.
Are you done, Commissioner? Thank you. So I had a few questions, mostly or all revolving around the affordability. So, I mean, my first question is there interest in providing one more affordable unit?
It would have to be subsidized somehow. You know, is the city interested in waiving other fees, prioritizing housing over Quimby fees, relief of some sort? Is there a source of funds? Does the housing department division have money they want to kick in? I have to balance the equation with sources and uses. I can't compromise feasibility, otherwise I'm wasting everybody's time. And that's exactly what I would be doing if I committed to all of them extremely low income. Why not stop there, you know? They wouldn't pencil. And it wouldn't compete for tax credits. It's too small. It wouldn't make sense. This is what I do for a living. I tell you all sincerity, it wouldn't make any sense financially.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is, how did you determine the AMI level at which you would provide that one unit, which is at 50% very low?
Yeah, it's funny on these small projects, the way that the rounding works with the affordable housing, with the density bonus law, it always kind of round up. And I think if I did the math, I don't have it in front of me, the amount of units we were bonusing to, I would get with one very low income unit. I think if it was like extremely low, I would still get to the same number of units I needed. I couldn't fit any more units on the site without going to a 5th floor or going to some elaborate micro unit. Now it's underparked. It's a very, how do I say this? The design is a reflection of a reaction to a marketplace. It's an entitlement strategy. It's an expectation of cost and revenue, all of that baked into a pretty picture. It takes a lot of, poor Eric went through how many iterations? 33 iterations of the plan because we kept tinkering and adapting. When you're in a marketplace that's so dynamic, flexibility is what you need to react to those dynamics, but you don't. You have to commit to one plan. You have to guess what the future holds. It's very challenging. I don't know how else to answer that. I'm sorry.
I don't think that my question was answered, which was how did you land on making that unit affordable at very low versus extremely or acutely low?
Sure. I looked at market rate units. Moderate income units. Moderate income units happen to be about market rate in Santa Ana because AMI is based on all of Orange County. I thought that was interesting, but I don't get bonuses or I don't get concessions or waivers, I think, if you use a moderate income unit. So that was off the table. And I needed those because, again, the transit zoning code is very prescriptive. It's a one size fits all approach to sites that don't fit. And so I needed to be able to use waivers and incentives. So I think my choices were very low income, or I think it was several low income units. And I don't have the tables in front of me, but I think that was the path we picked, where one unit resulted in the most benefit.
So
to the
would there be interest in making that one unit more affordable and providing it at extremely low or acutely low AMI rents?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in compromising the feasibility of the project any further.
Okay, thank you for your honesty. That's all for now.
My pleasure.
Vice Chair.
Thank you for giving us this presentation and for putting this project before us. I do agree there is a housing crisis. I do agree that we do need housing, especially in Santa Ana. The affordability is it's where I pause. And also the amount of units as well. Granted, we do need housing, but I don't believe in packing people into a single space. So I wanted to ask, how did you determine the number of studio units, 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units? What was the thought process and how did you get to those numbers?
I might need Eric for this one. I think we kind of back into the number of parking spaces first. When you're site planning, you start with your constraints and your opportunities. There was a lot of discussion with Public Works of line of sight and safe ingress and egress. So that set our driveway, that kind of let out the parking, got rid of the gate, the truck turnaround for trash. Again, that's That's a massive design consideration. It would have been a very different project if we could use the scout truck. And now all of that affords you a little building footprint. And within that mass, you need so many stairwells. We liked the elevator, even though it's an expensive gesture for only 4 stories. We liked it that all that takes up space. And what you're left with is kind of a net rentable envelope. And so you just make the best of that net rentable envelope, again, based on the number of parking spaces and units that you're afforded. So it's kind of a process of deduction. And again, highly iterative. Is it perfect? Probably not. We could probably iterate endlessly and find different ways, but I'm proud of that little project. I think it's really cool. I like the murals that we're proposing as options on both sides. Yeah, I think, you need a mix of units. One thing that we give a lot of thought to when you're leasing is you don't want 16 one-bedrooms. You're kind of competing against yourself. You want to lease up quickly. And so having a variety of different units is good, and you want them to stack for structural efficiencies. So all of that gets baked into the thought process. It's fun, actually.
Thank you. At this time, would you be interested in proposing an amendment for a different number of units? So less studio, or 1-bedroom, or 2-bedroom?
No, actually, I worked with housing. I forget her name. She was very, very kind. Is it Claudia, or I forget her name? But the nice lady in housing, we went through the whole matrix of the different unit types. I was suggesting that a studio be the one that was deed restricted. But she felt strongly that it be a 1-bedroom unit. We agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate you articulating your journey navigating the zoning code and the state mandates. I think overall, what we're vocalizing here is more of our concern with the state's language, not your own project. It just happens that your project was able to navigate the state's language and then able to produce the number of units that you have on site.
Mhm.
So that there's no qualms here for myself, what you're proposing. Did you ever explore the possibility of all on-grade parking with the units being starting from the second level? Was that in the consideration, or it's just didn't
Like a
pencil out?
townhome, like a townhome product?
No, more of just on-grade parking structure
Mm.
with units on top.
Yes, we did. We looked at it. The truck, again, the trash truck
Mhm.
is prohibitive. You can't. I don't know that there's an FAR limit on the site. Usually to justify an on-grade type 1 parking, parking level, you need 4 levels of units above that to amortize
cost.
that cost. But we did study it. That was one of the many studies that Eric provided. But you can't get that truck in there. And by the way, I did finally get an answer on the scout truck towards the end, and the Republic said something to the effect of, you can do it, but the scout truck needs to trade the bin with the larger truck all on site, which would negate the entire benefit. We asked at some point if we could put the parking field in the front to do a nice taller building in the back that was set back, less circulation, more efficient. That was frowned upon, but more in street activation. We exhausted all those conversations over the last 4 years. A lot of thought went into it, and I hope you guys can appreciate that. I mean, it wasn't just us. I mean, maybe I'll count the emails, hundreds, maybe thousands of emails with staff on every little nook of this thing. A lot of care went into it.
Thank you. Is there any additional comments before?
Yes, I got additional questions. First of all, I appreciate your effort and concern, and I know this has been 2 years. We go back to why you couldn't put gates and secures. Is that city law that won't allow you to put that automatic gate in the front of that? A lot of property in my neck of the woods does.
Yeah, it was twofold. Oh, there you go.
One of the reasons was my name is Eric Zuziak. I'm the architect and also one of the partners in the project. If we were to put in a gate, the city requires it to be 60 feet back from the right of way. So as Oscar said, our lot's 125 feet deep. That would have put the gate almost half the depth of the lot. So a big part of the parking would be outside of that gate and part of it would be inside of the gate. And when you divide a parking area, you have to have handicap parking spaces, or say accessible parking spaces on either side of that gate, because it's by state law, by building codes, you are creating two different classes of parking, and you can't discriminate against an accessible parking space by having one class of parking behind the gate and one class of parking outside the gate. So if the city on these small lots would consider a shallower setback from the right of way for shallow depth lots, you might have the opportunity to be able to get a gate and not create two separate classes of parking. So it's something I would encourage you to consider in future adjustment of your ordinance. Thank you.
That is interesting, because I'll just point out St. Albans were close to me, and Say's apartments next to me. None of them have a 60-foot setback
Yeah.
from the right away.
Yeah, many of the development standards that we are trying to comply with are really meant proportionally for much larger sites where you have an assembly of parcels, 3, 4, 5 times the size of this parcel. When you can start to get efficiencies of space and start to create some of those percentages of open space and some of those larger setbacks, and be able to take a very large trash truck apparatus into your project. That trash truck requires a certain height. We couldn't do a concrete deck parking structure on grade with the units above it because of the height. That would have been cost prohibitive. Plus just the small size of the site, and doing a concrete parking structure is just, you can't spread the cost of that across enough units to make it financially feasible, regardless of its height. So we're struggling with a lot of issues that are inherent with a small site. So maybe some of the things in the zoning code can be proportionate to the scale of the site. And that would, I think, make your future applicants create projects that are feasible. So yeah, you're right. We did discover some things quite a bit in this ordinance. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Escamilla, did you have a question?
Yeah, just, since we have you here, is this like a type of site that would have benefited from just having a single stair layout than, eliminating some of that space? Because I know we're looking at that. I think some folks are advocating for that at the state level, but.
You can't go 4 stories with one stair.
No, I know, but I mean to change that, as a change in the ordinance, would your particular project have benefited from the elimination of that second stairwell? Because
Well, it's not an issue of your ordinance. That's a building code.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. Would your particular project have benefited from the elimination of that requirement? Because part of the thing that we're trying to do.
Yeah, it would, but the California building code doesn't allow us to do that.
No more questions? Commissioner?
Yeah, not a question, but just a comment. So I know I've expressed a few concerns, but I did want to comment that I am happy to see that the one affordable unit is a 1-bedroom with an office. So, and I appreciate you also being transparent and saying that you initially were going to go with the studio, but city staff pushed for a bigger unit. And I thank you for conceding on that. I think when we do see a very small number of affordable units, it is important that they're provided at a decent size and that we just don't go with the smallest and cheapest option. So thank you on that piece.
Well, thank you for,
Thank you.
all right, now we'll move on to public comments. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication, or is there a member of the public that would like to comment on this item?
We have received 2 public comments prior to the 4 p.m. deadline. They have been distributed to the commissioners. If you're attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you're calling in and would like to comment on this item, please dial *9 and then *6 to unmute yourself. I will wait a few seconds. Chair, there's a comment on Zoom and there's also a speaker who filled out a request to speak form. There's
Eh,
2 comments on Zoom.
Is that written comment or is that someone that would like to speak on Zoom?
So there's 2 people who would like to speak on Zoom and then 1 person in
So
here that
we'll,
wants
we'll
to
go
speak.
with the 2 speakers on Zoom first, and then we'll ask the in-person comment to present.
Ben Salazar, if you can unmute yourself. Oh. Or number 477, if you can speak now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, this is Dale Helvig, Ward 3. From what I'm understanding is the applicant said he doesn't think you can deny the density bonus agreement. And I heard words like entitlement and everything else. And I think the city is giving up a lot for a 1-bedroom unit for low income or very low income, whatever it's decided upon. Yes, we need housing, but at what expense? You know, the residents that are going to be down there on 4th Street are going to have this 4-story building right next to them with 1.1 parking spaces. And we know that 17 parking spaces is going to be eaten up by X amount of EV spots and X amount of handicap spots. And so whether there's handicapped people there or people that own EVs there, they're not going to be able to use those spots. And so it's really going to be less than 1 by the time everything's all said and done for parking. And I just think it's wrong for the city to concede all this for 1 unit. So I'm hoping that you guys deny the density bonus agreement, even though the applicant says you cannot. I'd like to see where it goes from there because, you know, other things can be done. You know, I appreciate the challenge that he's going through, trying to get this project in, but, you know, we're going to be here long after he's developed it and gone. And the people there are going to have to live with the results, and the city's going to have to live with the results. And we saw what it did when we had density bonus agreements signed for the projects up on 1st Street. And we, you know, the issues that we're facing up there today with the lack of parking. And we know it's a citywide issue, and doing these concessions just increases the problems that we're trying to address as a city. You know, we've got the parking study going on to try and figure out what we're doing with all this. And then we have projects like this that come in and only make it worse. So I hope you deny it, and I'm interested to hear what happens after this. Thank you.
Thank you. Second caller.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ben Salazar. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I think the phrase housing crisis came up a few times during this meeting, and I think that almost doesn't really respect the size of the issue that we're having, not just in Santa Ana, not just in Orange County, but in Southern California in general. You know, we're losing residents by the hundreds of thousands in terms of net migration, and then the folks who are here can barely afford to live here often enough. No small reason why we have such a homeless epidemic on our streets. And while I respect concerns about things like parking or neighborhood character or things of that nature, I think that, you know, we're in a housing emergency right now, I think is the only word for it. And, you know, while I certainly want to see smart development, what I really want to see is people not living on the streets anymore and people being able to live in the cities that they work in and, you know, be able to afford to live there as well. And the only way we can do that right now in our current system is to build more housing. So I hope we move forward with this. I hope the Planning Commission in general moves forward with more housing. And there are, you know, fewer roadblocks thrown up in terms of concerns around, to me, relatively ephemeral things like neighborhood character, parking, etc. And yeah, those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Those are the 2 Zoom comments.
The request to speak form, it's on your desk.
We have a Mr. Reyes.
This one, yeah. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Desi Reyes and I live at Saddleback View Neighborhood Association, which is right east of Grand and south of First Street. And as always, parking is in our minds when projects like this come to our neighborhoods. So this project is close to, the 7-Eleven store, and then you got Eastwood Street right across from it. Eastwood Street has a mixture of duplex, triplex, single family residence, fourplex. Parking, you can't find parking on that street. And then on the other side, you got also Eastwood, 2nd Street, 3rd Street. I drove by there this morning. It's all, you can't find parking. So I'm already telling my neighbors, I'm McClay, you better get permit parking because this is what's coming into the area. And it will affect all of us, especially when you have 17 parking spots, 2 are taken by EDs, and then you got, what I have the other ones, handicap parking. You have 2-bedroom units, where usually you have 2 cars in a 2-bedroom unit. So it could really become an issue as these projects come into the area. I mean, the architecture of this building is really nice. I like it, the way it is. But so those are some of the issues that we're gonna have to deal with in the future, and you guys too. We already have a lot of affordable housing, I think, on First Street. There's a lot in there. So that's another point that you have to think about when some of these developers can't do it. We got too many already on First Street, and there's more coming. Okay. In terms of there's a transformer, SC transformer on the lot. And if this project gets approved, look at we'd like to have some anti-graffiti coating on that SCE box, or some kind of artwork on the box, because it will get graffiti. I mean, right now is a very blighted area. There's a lot of traffic on the 7-Eleven, and we're going to see graffiti on this building, so at the beginning, it is also, it's the first 4-story building in the area. It looks odd around the other the existing, but somebody has to be first at some point, and then it goes from there. So it's a tough situation. But parking is the main concern for the neighborhood at this point. I have no parking on Linwood Street between midnight and 6 a.m. A lot more streets in the neighborhood have that also. McClay Street doesn't, and I just call my neighbors and say, you guys better start this right away because it's coming. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's no other speaker. The public hearing is now closed. I'll bring it back to the commission. If there's anything you'd like to discuss. Commissioner Escamilla.
Sure, and I guess this will be directed to staff. Right now, the item before us is really just approving the density bonus agreement. Nothing else that we can really do to modify anything on the site design, any requirements for improvements as it related to the the infrastructure for stacked parking. I thought the point that graffiti was important, kind of maybe greening some of those walls where we're likely to see graffiti, things like that. Is that an option to discuss up here currently, or we really are limited only to the density bonus?
Thank you, Commissioner. You're correct. You're really limited to the density bonus agreement. However, if within your purview to ask the question to the applicant, if he's amenable, doesn't have to agree to the terms, but the question, the opportunity is always there.
If we can have the applicant. So just the 2 very simple items that seem to be relatively small fixes. If we could, and it's deemed feasible to add the infrastructure and conduit and everything needed for stacked parking on site, if you would be amenable to that.
Yeah, I'd love the flexibility to do that in the future. Again, I'm not sure how that works with the rear setback, but so long as there's a solution for that, yeah, I'd love to do that. And I'll just add that when we get into final engineering, we have to look at load calcs and single lines, and usually our restrictive component is the transformer itself. So long as it doesn't grow to 2 transformers, something like that, then I think we can probably make that work.
Okay, and then to Mr. Reyes's point, if there is any way to incorporate just living walls onto those areas where you probably will see some graffiti kind of coming up. I don't actually know which particular walls he might have been referring to, but just taking that into consideration as you further the design along.
Absolutely. I mean, we we're just chatting, love the idea of the murals. I mean, love the art. I mean, I think it's part of the fabric of the city. We'd love to do that on any above ground structures, utility boxes or whatever.
Okay, so with that, unless anyone wants to keep talking about it, I'm ready to motion to approve the density bonus.
Are there any other discussion points, commissioners? No, then I'll entertain a motion if there is a motion.
There is a motion.
There's a motion by Commissioner Escamilla. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Benninger,
At this time, we're not allowed to comment, are we? Yeah. I'm going to say no, because I really think for what we're giving up, we really should get a second low income unit.
There's a no.
Commissioner Escamilla,
Aye.
Commissioner Leo,
No.
Commissioner Ramos,
As we're kind of required to by state law, but I do want to comment that I also wish there was another unit. And I also wish that this project was subject to our inclusionary housing ordinance. And I'll be making separate comments on that later.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye, because state is asking us to do it, and I wish we could conform it to more of our need and get some more concession for ourselves. For our city, I mean.
Vice Chair Oliva,
Aye.
Chair Pham.
Aye.
Motion approved by majority vote with Commissioners Benninger, Commissioner Leo dissenting.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for presenting. You know, that was a quite a long presentation, so I think we should take a 5-minute break.
Yes.
And continue. Is that okay? Take five?
Sure.
Commissioner Benninger? You comment? Commissioner will resume the meeting. This is the time and place for public hearing on item number 2, conditional use permit number 2023-13 for the property located at 300 East 4th Street, Unit 103. Before we begin, do any of the commissioners have anything they wish to disclose in regards to this item? Seeing none, Matthew will now provide a brief presentation. Matthew.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Thank you for welcoming me. To sum up the item before you, Lucy's Pizza is requesting approval of conditional use permit number 2023-13 to allow the sale of beer and wine for on-premises consumption at an existing eating establishment located at 300 East 4th Street, unit number 103. Staff is recommending the adoption of a resolution approving the CUP as conditioned. The site is located within the general plan land use designation as District Center, Medium High, DC-3. The site zoning classifications for the downtown district DC of its SD 84 zone. The surrounding land uses include commercial retail to the north, east, south, and west. The existing two-story, 16,000 square foot multi-tenant commercial building is located on a 0.31 acre lot, with the unit number 103 taking up only a fraction of the 714 square foot tenant space, with a 328 square foot outdoor dining patio. The subject site was developed in 1986 as the 4th Street Fiesta Market and has since been occupied by various retail, office, and restaurant tenants. The applicant, business owner Daniel Angiano, submitted the subject application to the Planning Division to allow the sale of beer and wine for on-premises consumption in order to provide an additional service to its customers and offer a tasty ancillary option to pair with pizza. Currently, Lucy's Pizza will operate Monday through Thursday from noon to 10 p.m., Friday and Saturday from noon to 12 a.m. midnight, and Sunday from noon to 8 o'clock p.m. This establishment will accommodate up to 14 patrons indoors and 16 patrons outdoors, with no live entertainment being requested at this time. This is a site plan or a site photo of the western elevations and main entrance and outdoor dining patio for the existing unit number 103 tenant space. This is the site plan of the subject property. This is the floor plan. As shown, the alcohol display will take up a small fraction of the floor space, 35 square feet in total, which is less than the allotted 5% maximum. Based on the analysis of this project, the Planning Division has found that the subject site is consistent with the goals and objectives found in the land use element of the general plan. It is located in a commercially acceptable zone, neighbors other commercial uses, and is not located in close proximity to any playgrounds. Plaza Calle Cuatro is the nearest public plaza / park and is 150 linear feet north across 4th Street. Approval of the CUP will also allow Lucy's Pizza to remain economically viable and compete with nearby eating establishments, offering a similar type of goods and experience, thus contributing positively to the surrounding area. According to SAPD crime statistics, they found that within police grid number 185, it ranked 9 out of 102, which is the 8th percentile, which is within the 20% threshold established by the state for high crime. With that being said, the Santa Ana Police Department has no prejudicial concerns and is satisfied that the operational standards and conditions of approval will mitigate any potential impacts to the surrounding community and does not oppose the granting of the CUP. Conditions of approval, property maintenance agreements, and operational standards in the Santa Ana Municipal Code will address any potential negative impacts. In accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and the CEQA guidelines, the project is categorically exempt from further review. There is no physical or fiscal impact associated with this action. Staff recommends the adoption of resolution approving CUP number 2023-13 as conditioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Staff, as well as the applicant business owner of Lucy's Pizza, Daniel Angiano, are available to answer any outstanding questions.
Thank you, Matthew. Does the commissioner have any comments for staff?
No comment.
Commissioner Escamilla?
Just curious, because this was a former Pizza Loco, did that the former use have a beer and wine license previously, or is this the first one for the site?
It is the first one for the site, yes.
Commissioner Leo?
Question. We had someone in several meetings ago, or we had a discussion if we were going to extend it to one. I don't remember if you were the presenter or not. Remember that discussion? Would it assist police? And this is my question. Would it assist police to have them all open and close at the same time? Or one at midnight, one at 1:30. How can we make it more uniform? So that, like, it's his choice whether or not he wants to stay open past 12. That's his choice. But in the area, as we approve these licenses, because we're starting to accumulate some. How do we look at this as we go down this road? Because there are a lot, we're increasing the number. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you, Commissioner, and it's a great question. The code does allow permissively under the current ordinance up to 12 a.m. Any businesses that wants to operate beyond that would be required to have an after-hour CUP. So from a police enforcement perspective, they do have a measurable knowledge of what to expect, which is at 12 midnight.
It came back in for CUP like chapter 1 and others that are open later.
Yes, and that's
Okay.
when the additional CUP would be required.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair, as a formality, you'll need to open the public hearing.
Oh, I apologize.
Or-
The public hearing is now open. Commissioner Wu. Thank you, Ali.
The business owner, based on his business model, appears to limit himself, and others choose to open later because of the way they operate. And if you look at the size of this particular one next door to the playground or across the courtyard from him, I don't have any question. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Wu. More of a comment.
And no
Commissioner?
questions.
Commissioner?
No questions.
No question for me either. Would the applicant like to make a statement?
Evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for considering our CUP. Just want to say that, me and my partners, we're here, we're lifelong residents of Santa Ana, grew up here. Me particularly worked for the city for 10 and a half years. Always been, try to be part of the community. And opening our business has, let us do that. We've been fortunate enough to start a business that people from other cities are starting to come to or recognize, from Laguna Beach, the Valley. And this CUP will, help us a lot in, bringing money to the downtown, and also help us with creating jobs for the area. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication to members of the public that would like to comment on this item?
We have not received public comment prior to the 4 p.m. deadline. If you're attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you're participating via Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you're calling in and would like to comment on this item, please dial *9 and then *6 to unmute yourself. I will wait a few seconds. Chair, we have one speaker on Zoom.
Speaker, please go ahead.
Yeah, this is Ben Salazar again, Ward 3. I actually didn't intend to attend this portion, but then I saw Lucy's was applying, and I think they're one of the best new restaurants in Santa Ana. It seems like this permit will go through without issue, as well it should, but I just wanted to express how glad I am that they moved into the city. It's probably the best pizza in the city, at least as far as I'm concerned, and I just wanted to give them a congratulations. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. That's quite a glowing review. Seeing that there's no other speaker, the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve this matter?
I would like to make the motion, we approve it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Benninger
Second.
and a second by Vice Chair Oliva. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Benninger,
Aye.
Commissioner Escamilla,
Aye.
Commissioner Leo,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Oliva,
Aye.
Chair Pham.
Aye.
Motion approved by unanimous consent.
Thank you. This is the item in place for a public hearing on item number 3, conditional use permit number 2023-17 for the property located at 2401 South Pullman Street. Before we begin, do any of the commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regards to this item? Being none, Matthew will then provide a brief presentation. Matthew.
Thank you. To sum up this item before you, Ariana DeBarrio with EMI Strategies Incorporated on behalf of Del Amo Motorsports of Orange County, the applicant, and Pullman LP, property owner, is requesting approval of conditional use permit number 2023-17 to allow the construction of a new 60-foot high freeway-oriented off-premises digital billboard at 2401 South Pullman Street. Staff is recommending the adoption of a resolution approving this CUP as conditioned. The site is located within the general plan land use designation as industrial flex medium, flex 3. The site's zoning classification is for the light industrial M1. The surrounding land uses include industrial M1 zoning to the north, east, south, and west. The existing 41,000 square foot industrial building is located on a 2.44 acre lot with a proposed site of the digital billboard located to the west of the property. The subject site was developed in 1967 as an aerospace missile manufacturing industrial building and has since been occupied by various manufacturing and wholesale businesses. Del Amo Motorsports of Orange County began occupying the property in 2016. Del Amo Motorsports is one of the largest motorsports dealers in Southern California and carries an array of brands and models. The applicant, Del Amo Motorsports, submitted the subject application to the Planning Division to allow the construction of the new 60-foot high freeway-oriented digital billboard in order to utilize it for both on and off-premises advertisement. The billboard has been designed as a V-shaped double-faced billboard with 20 by 40 feet digital LED displays, which will sit atop a 40-foot structural support pole. The base will be enclosed and concealed ladder will grant access along the rear portion of the billboard to allow for easy and prompt resolutions when technical difficulties occurs. The site photo of the western elevations and the proposed site just behind the flag. This is the site plan of the subject property. The enlarged site plan along Pullman Street. And these are digital renderings of multiple elevations of the billboard. The billboard conforms with the development, design, lighting, and operational standards set forth by Article 12 of the off-premises commercial advertising signs of the municipal code. Operating practices and procedures will minimize any potential aesthetic and traffic impacts. The billboard will be subject to all applicable standards set forth by the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans. Mitigation measures identified in the Adopted Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, the MMRP, and conditions of approval will further mitigate any potential impacts that may be created by the billboard and will ensure that the billboard will not negatively affect the surrounding community and traffic patterns. In accordance with Section 41-11-13 of the Municipal Code, the applicant has submitted an operating agreement, which will need to be approved by the city manager prior to permit issuance. An economic and community benefits plan has been incorporated into the operating agreement, which includes the following benefits. Local hiring, 20% of employees must be Santa Ana residents for construction, operation, and maintenance of its billboard. An increased sale tax revenue, and an annually increasing operating fees. Based on the terms of the operating agreement, approval of the item is expected to generate well over $2 million for the city over the agreement's 20-year term. In accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and the Section 15162 of the CEQA guidelines, this project is within the scope of the 2022 Santa Ana Off-Premises Commercial Advertising Signs Ordinance Mitigated Negative Declaration, the MND. Based on the terms of the operating agreement described in the prior sections of this presentation, approval of the item is expected to have a fiscal impact and generate well over $2 million over the agreement's 20-year term. Staff recommends the adoption of resolution approving CUP number 2023-17 as conditioned. Staff, as well as Ariana DeVario, representing EMI Strategies Incorporated on behalf of Del Amo Motorsports, are available to answer any outstanding questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. The public hearing is now open. Does the commission have any question for staff?
Question that I have is the brightness intensity of the sign. Is it going to interfere with that traffic going? I'm really concerned about southbound 55.
Yes, that was considered. Under Article 12 for the off-premise commercial advertising sign, it very clearly states any sort of issues from aesthetics to lighting, most certainly. Those all passed and are in compliance. Secondly, the billboard is subject to any applicable standards set forth by Caltrans. So they'll have to present to Caltrans to make sure that that is okay as well. But yes, both those things were considered.
There are also limitations on what kind of, what they could show on there, because I hate to see something distract drivers driving south.
Yes, that as well was considered during the off-premise commercial advertising signs and the MND. It also has to comply with Caltrans standards. So yes, there's a certain amount of time that can go by, so it's not flashy to distract drivers. That's the entire intention.
And would there be any available time for local Santa Ana events, whether it be Little League or whatever?
Yes, it's for off site advertisement.
But
So, yeah.
would they agree to let Santa Ana nonprofit groups some time to advertise certain events?
I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that that would be open to, since it would take place of off-site advertisements.
Commissioner Benninger, as indicated in the staff report and in the draft terms of the operating agreement, the applicant has agreed to set aside a portion of time on the billboard for PSAs, public service announcements, and community service announcements, things like hiring for the police department, all the way to emergency service alerts, all the way down to local festivals and parades and things like that.
Very good, thank you.
Commissioner Escamilla?
Yeah, no, I guess, yeah, to Carl's concern, I think that's really the big one. Now with the additions of the, I think there's gonna be a little bit of a revision of the 55 freeway along that route. Was that kind of taken into consideration that there was a little bit of a widening project going on in that particular area? Was that taken into consideration as we were doing the analysis?
So for the off-premise commercial advertising section of the code, this is located in billboard area 5. So it conformed to all those expected standards.
Okay, and I guess just the second one, and I think I fear that I've missed the chance to revise the billboard ordinance. But if there is any way in the future that we can make the actual structure itself look architecturally interesting, I think that it's going to be fine. But anything, you know, especially like in a situation like this where it was tied to space missile manufacturing, it sounded like it was a missile factory to start off. Anything where it kind of ties into the history or anything of the site, kind of in the same way that we try to hide our cell phone towers, or, you know, so the structure itself is actually a little bit more visually interesting. Definitely don't have anything against it as far as it not complying with our current standards, but I would like, you know, early in those conversations to just throw out the idea to the applicant, anything they can do to make the structure itself a little bit more interesting, you know, 50 years from now when, you know, the sign needs to be replaced and the structure itself would be a little bit more interesting to look at rather than just the, you know, the tube that I think we have right now.
Thank you, Commissioner. And early on, we did have engaged in that discussion, and certainly we'll continue to look at the billboards on a case-by-case basis. In this situation, considering the type of business, considering what they have on site architecturally, we initially discussed other design, but at the end of the day, when we looked at it, to keep it conforming with the business, keep it simple, we thought was in this case the best design for this.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Leo?
No comments.
Commissioner Wu?
Over a 20-year period, it's going to be approximately $100,000, right, per year. Because
what
it's 2
capacity?
million over 20 years, right? So if you divide 2 million by 20.
You're correct. It's
Okay.
approximately.
And I just want to concern something. It's not a moving drive-in billboard, right? We won't be seeing moving pictures.
Under Caltrans code, you can't have moving images. It's still images that display for approximately 8 seconds in rotation.
Right, I'm just confirming that because the rendering show a action of someone on a water ski boat. So I was kind of concerned about that. The building is kind of unique. It's all glass and as you're driving up 55 and catching the 5 and all that, you'll see it. It's in a unique location. So I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Wu. Commissioner Ramos,
No questions. Thank you.
Vice Chair?
No questions.
No questions from me either. Thank you. Would the applicant like to make a statement?
Commissioners, thank you so much for having us here. I just want to extend my thanks to Mintai, Ali, Matthew. Working with the staff here has been fantastic, and we would not have gotten here without their guidance. So just want to extend my gratitude to the wonderful team. Mr. King, the owner of Dilemma Motorsports, couldn't be here this evening. He has a friend who's a little bit sick, but he also extends his thanks. And if you have any other questions, I'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any question with the applicant? Okay. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication or is there anyone from the public that would like to comment?
We have not received public comment prior to the 4 p.m. deadline. If you're attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you're participating via Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you're calling in and would like to comment on this item, please dial *9 and then *6 to unmute yourself. I will wait a few seconds. Chair, we do not have any speakers.
Thank you. Seeing there's no speakers, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve this matter?
I would like to motion that we approve.
A motion by Commissioner Benninger
I'll second the motion.
and a second by Commissioner Escamilla.
And Chair, as a formality, it appears there was a technical error and that the incorrect resolution was uploaded with the packet. But the resolution is available in print here at City Hall and was posted with the agendas for anyone who was interested in viewing them.
Both commissioners are still okay with your motion? Okay.
Yes, I still.
Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Benninger,
Aye.
Commissioner Escamilla,
Aye.
Commissioner Leo,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliva,
Aye.
Commissioner Pham.
Aye.
Motion approved by unanimous consent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, for clarification, who made the second on that motion? I'm not sure it was recorded.
That was Commissioner Escamilla.
Thank you.
That concludes the business calendar. Moving on to staff comments.
Thank you, Chair. At this time, I would like to reserve my comment to a little bit later. I want to yield the floor to our legal counsel, John Funk.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My comments tonight, and thank you, Min, for that. I appreciate it. Comments tonight are a bit less legal and more personal, I should say. It's certainly been a great pleasure serving the Planning Commission for the last 2.5 years and planning staff as well. But tonight will be my last meeting in this role as counsel to the Commission. I've recently accepted a position in another city to serve as the city attorney, and so I'll be departing the city in a couple weeks. But again, I wish to thank the council for allowing me in this role. It's really been among the highlights of my service here at the city over the last 8.5 years, and I will truly miss it. It's with a heavy heart.
truly, because I have such great affinity for Santa Ana and the people we serve and the mission that we serve. And it's a truly with mixed feelings, but also very genuinely excited for the next chapter. So thank you so much.
You can't go.
I just like to say, Jim, I work with you not only here, but also in ETech, and you've always been a gentleman to work with, and always appreciate your straightforward to answers. So thank you. And can I ask what city?
I will say it's I'm honored, especially because it's the city in which I grew up and was raised, the city of Downey. So, yeah. So thank you.
All right. Oh my gosh. John, you will be missed. So we're gonna all echo that, but definitely I think, first meeting you on staff, and every single interaction with you has always been pleasant, very, you have a warm presence about you, but also just so knowledgeable in so many areas of municipal law, and Downey's got a really great asset coming their way.
Thank you to Commissioner Escamilla. I appreciate their kind words.
I have a couple. First of all, congratulations. Hopefully it's not as crazy as here. Second of all, I had a question about where we are with by right. I heard some comments tonight. We went through an item. I don't want to talk about the item, but I want to understand flexibility that we have in those areas. Because basically, I think all of us had some issues, maybe not. I think even Manny had some questions. We had some issues with the project. And it was basically like we had to take it as is. And I think that we're doing a disservice to the residents of Santa Ana by being stuck in that position. Now, if it's a state issue, tell us it's a state issue. If it's not a state issue and it's us, then there are things we could work out. There were several issues brought up that we could work out. So in that area, let's have a discussion about that later on. We don't have to have tonight. The 55 widening, we just dealt with a digital sign, understood. We have billboards that are on truck trailers. They've been there the whole time I've lived here. They're generating revenue and we get none of it. We get zero. And if I remember correctly, back in the day, it was, oh, it's a temporary sign. It's on the side of a truck trailer, so we can't do anything about it. But the 55 is widening. There's going to be no sound walls there. We can do an effort to twist some arms and clean up our portion of the 55. We put in a brand new sign for the auto mall. We're going to put in this brand new sign. Why should that portion of the 55 look the way it looks compared to the rest of it? And whether it's advertising for whatever it is, whatever religious faith they have, whatever political party they want to support, that doesn't need, unless you're getting a piece of the action, why should we allow it? So I don't know what's going on with that property, but it's been going on there as long as I've lived here. And we need to figure out a way to curtail that, or if it's a business transaction, then so be it. But as the 55 is widening, because there's a lot of construction, there's brand new buildings being slapped up on the other side. That's Santa Ana too. This brand new digital sign. We can raise the level of what it looks like. So that is my my idea for helping along the 55, because we put in brand new signs. Automall's got a beautiful sign. This is going to be a beautiful sign. I agree with Manny, maybe a little bit more architectural changes, but that's great. That's upgrade. Now, if we can upgrade the truck trailers that advertise for a few things every year, or man, if you can negotiate a better deal, negotiate a better deal. But it's a pet peeve. It's like we're improving all along the 55, but not that one portion. So.
Thank you.
John, congratulations on your new appointment. And I always like to glance over every time just to make sure that we're on the right track with your nods. So I appreciate your help with all these hearings. Commissioner Wu.
Pleasure working with you, and best of luck to you. One of our neighborhood leaders, Joanna Peterson, didn't she work for down there at the Chamber of Commerce? Yeah, well, Santa Ana can't leave you. I was more, the issues we have with getting housing and all that is it seemed our existing building codes and things doesn't give us a lot of options in terms of shaping the kind of buildings that we have. You know, my concern is that all we could do is approve more housing, more housing, more housing, more housing. And yet, we do have more heating and going on in our planet and don't have the water and stuff. So I know this is a state mandate. Somewhere along the line, I just was wondering, hopefully we could have some way of really more say about our quality of life in our city too. Or maybe that would take care of itself through economics of people just moving out into other states and let them have the problem. Yes. I don't know what to do. We're just.
Commissioner Ramos.
Yes, I want to start off by saying congratulations, John. You've been a great source of knowledge and always very helpful and kind in your role. So I really appreciate it. And I sincerely wish you the best. You're welcome. And then I have a question for staff. So I know we saw a project come to us where it was subject to the state density bonus law as opposed to our inclusionary housing ordinance. So I know we can't get into the details of that specific case, but I would like to know what steps city staff is taking to ensure that that's not the case again. Because if it were, it might mean that we're basically leaving affordable housing units on the table that we could require projects to include.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. As documented by the letter of technical assistance, I think it's evident that the city very much orchestrated an effort in general to implement the AHOCO to the fullest degree possible. And that project, generally speaking, was an isolated incident. So we don't anticipate this being an issue moving forward for the AHOCO. And if we do, we'll be sure to obviously work with our colleagues in the city attorney's office to foresee those before they arise.
Thank you. And then just related but separate, so I know there was earlier comments that alluded to just a better understanding of what our responsibility is to abide by state law or state mandates. So I know that was also a part of a request for like Commissioner future trainings or just future items. So I just wanted to check in on when we might be receiving that, just so everybody feels well equipped to take these votes when such items come to us.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we are looking at September for the follow-up training. And this definitely will be an item that we want to share with you. I just want to share that we feel your frustration. We share your frustration. It is a very heavy-handed approach by the state in the recent years on many housing bills, including density bonus, requirements. And this has been in place for many years now. So we do understand the frustration. We definitely want to provide the background so that you can understand the parameters of what the city has authority and where we don't have authority, so that, you can certainly express your frustration. I don't advocate for not for showing or sharing your frustration, but certainly at least understand what the legal parameters are. And we will have that as a workshop item in September following up.
Thank you. That's all.
Commissioner.
John, congratulations. I hope you have a wonderful time in Downey. I work in Downey, so maybe we'll run into each other. But I want to thank staff for putting together today's meeting. It was a lot to go over. It was a lot of learning. It was a lot of work. So thank you so much, especially not just to put it together for today's meeting, but just the prolonged time to get to where we got to with today's resolution. And I want to thank my colleagues just because great questions were asked, and people really advocated for what we want to see in the city, and we'll just continue doing our job. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Min, you have the last word. Oh, no, I'm out of words. Go ahead.
I just want to, on behalf of the department, to say thank you to John for the years of service you have provided to the city and to the department. You have been one of the best city attorney I've worked with. You always show us the right path, but you also are always very willing to fight on our behalf as well. And I think that's what make you a great attorney. So thank you. Good luck. Downey's gain is our loss, certainly. But you know, hopefully our paths will cross in the future as well. And please keep in touch. Thank you.
Great. This concludes our meeting. The next regular meeting will be held on Monday, September 11th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. Council chambers. Thank you.